Shareholder value maximization talk assumes that all shareholders are the same and that all they care about is what's happening to the company's stock price. Actually, all they care about under this theory is what's happening to the stock price tomorrow. They're not even worried about the stock price 5 or 10 years from now. And this very simplified model of what you might almost call a platonic shareholder, a hypothetical platonic shareholder who only cares about the stock price of one company at one moment in time, is completely unrealistic. Real shareholders are people, and they have many differing interests. They're not all the same. For example, one big difference among shareholders is whether they're thinking short-term or long-term. Most people who are investing in the stock market are investing for retirement, or perhaps a child's college tuition, or some other long-term project. Some shareholders, especially, for example, activist hedge funds, that buy shares intending to hold them for a year or maybe 2 years at most. Those two groups have very different interests. Long-term shareholders want the company to invest for the future and take care of its employees and customers so it'll operate sustainably over time. Short-term hedge funds don't care. Anything that gets the stock price up in the next year is good enough for them. And there are lots of ways to get the stock price up: by taking on leverage, by cutting research and development, by firing employees. Lots of ways to get the stock price up in the short term, but many of them end up hurting the company in the long term, which is a problem for long-term shareholders. Another key difference among shareholders is whether they're diversified, that means they own stock in lots of different companies, or whether they only own stock in 1 or 2 companies. If you're a diversified shareholder, you care whether your corporation is making money by doing something anti-competitive that's hurting the profits at another corporation you also own. If you own stock and bonds, you don't want your company leveraging in a fashion, taking on debt that is, in a fashion that drives up the share price, but makes it less likely your bonds will be paid off. But if all you own is stock in a single company, or maybe stock in 2 or 3 companies, which is typical for many hedge funds, then you don't care about the consequences for other investments.